Chapter 79. After finishing the delicious hot pot, Fujio wanted to say goodbye to Almighty Qin and go home to install her mini-game. Although she didn't have all the parts she bought, she could still assemble the interior. She didn't expect that Almighty Qin would ask her to stay. "I have a dinner here later. Come with me, and I'll send you home after eating." Fujio was about to refuse. Almighty Qin said calmly, "I'll play the game with you after eating." Did he mean that if she didn't eat, she wouldn't play the game with him? But she had just finished the hot pot, and now, as if reading her mind, Qin Mo flicked the cigarette butt on his finger and continued, "I'll leave after a few sips of wine. You don't have to force it on me. Actually, I can still eat another plate of beef." Fujio held her chin and smiled. "I'll keep you company." Qin Mo didn't say anything else, but Feng Shang was watching from the side. He felt that young Master Qin's face had finally eased up since he came in. It wasn't good for Feng Shang to stay here because he was worried that his brother would come and find out that he had secretly participated in the competition. Speaking of the competition, Feng Shang still had a few questions to ask Fujio. "Idol, who are the other 3 members of our team? Can you tell me their in-game names? I'll give them gold coins." Fujio was very satisfied that she had hooked up with such a good teammate. "But, the current members of the team." Fujio paused. Feng Shang sat up straight and waited for Fujio's next words with bright eyes. "Only you and me." Fujio's hammer fell, and she was still as evil as before. "Are you proud to be a veteran member?" Even the well-behaved Feng Shang couldn't help but twitch his mouth when he heard this. So they didn't even have a team. Why did he feel like he was cheated by his idol? "I'm here, aren't I?" Fujio was about to pat Feng Shang's shoulder. Suddenly, Almighty Qin raised his hand and blocked the guy's movement. His gaze deepened as he tapped the lighter on his fair wrist. "Your claws." Was he really going to take care of her? Fujio pouted her pretty thin lips and retracted her hand disinterestedly. "Anyway, baby Shang, don't worry. We won't have to worry about not having anyone to fight with." Feng Shang thought about his idol's abilities in the game and relaxed a little. But who the hell was baby Shang? Baby Shang felt bitter in his heart, but he didn't say it out loud. Moreover, being recruited by his idol was indeed a blessing. Even if it wasn't on a large scale now, he believed that they would definitely become popular in the future. Furthermore, his idol had said that he would bring him along to fight for first place. If he really didn't have any teammates, he would use the game's gold coins to buy 3 to join the party. He had plenty of money in the game anyway. Thinking of this, Feng Shang stood up reluctantly. Then I'll leave first, idol. I'll go home and change my equipment. After all, I have to follow my idol and conquer the world. You and young Master Qin, socialize first." "All right." Fujio lifted her lips, and her eyes reflected the light. It was very beautiful. Looking at his idol, Feng Shang's handsome face started to turn red again. He thought about it and decided to give his idol some advice, so he secretly tugged at the corner of Fujio's shirt. He didn't expect that his action would make that young Master Qin look at him. He just looked at him. His handsome godlike face was slightly tilted, and his phoenix eyes were half raised. His eyes were clearly curved into a faint smile, but they were cold and sinister. Chapter 80. Feng Shang finally understood why his elder brother, a smart and capable person, was so timid in front of young Master Qin. He was clearly a manager, but he couldn't even control the Almighty under him. So, apart from the fact that young Master Qin was the CEO of the corporation, his gaze could really kill people. The obedient Feng Shang shrunk his neck and swallowed back the warning he wanted to give his idol. Fujio noticed that she was still tugging at her, so she turned around and looked at her. "What's wrong?" No, nothing. Feng Shang's stuttering couldn't be changed. Joe, I'll be leaving first. Why, if you don't have anything else to do, you should go home early and log in. Don't provoke young Master Qin. It was a tiger. His idol was so smart, he should know this too, right? But the main thing was, judging from his idol's reaction just now, it didn't seem like he knew about this. Fu Jiu, on the other hand, was full. She looked a little like a careless cat. She waved her hand, looking as handsome as ever. You go first. I'll carry you in the game after I finish eating here. Okay. Feng Shang blushed again. He really thought that his idol was good-looking. He didn't want to leave, but he couldn't resist the coldness emanating from Almighty Qin. After thinking for a while, he left the hot pot restaurant while looking back repeatedly. He was the one who asked out with his idol, but in the end, he was the one who had to leave. He wanted to go home with his idol and let his idol see the equipment he had bought in-game. Almighty Qin was robbing her of her love. Thinking of this, baby Shang felt a little emotional, but he did not dare to say it. He secretly decided to hook up with more girls in the game today. After Feng Shang left, Qin Mo retracted his gaze. His voice was still calm. If you don't want Feng Yi to know that his brother is participating in the esports competition, stay away from him. It's the same in the game. Got it. Fu Jiu stretched her back and agreed, but she might not actually do it. The two of them sat on one side. Sunlight shone in from the outside and shone on the young man's clean and delicate side profile through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Qin Mo stood up with the car key in his hand and raised his eyebrows at Fu Jiu. Get up. Where are you going? Fu Jiu was confused. Didn't they say that there would be a dinner party later? Almighty Qin was still cold and aloof. No emotions could be seen on his face. There's still some time before the meal starts. Go and digest the food first. Is racing to aid digestion. Fu Jiu followed Almighty Qin down, and the first thing she saw was that top-end limited edition sports car with charming lines. It was painted in pure black, but the tires had a hint of red. This kind of car had great performance, and the starting price was estimated to be over 80. Like? Qin Mo watched as the youngster's eyes lit up. He pressed the unlock button. Chapter 81. Fu Jiu. Almighty, you don't follow the plot of a novel. It's hard, you know. Qin Mo looked at the young man's slightly depressed expression, and his thin lips curled up into a faint smile. He grabbed Fu Jiu by the back of her collar and shoved her into the passenger seat. When the car started to move, it was even cooler than it looked. Especially when there were two equally outstanding people sitting inside. Fu Jiu's silver hair was blown into a mess by the wind coming in from the car window, and she looked indescribably cool. Such a handsome face and luxurious style. When the beautiful car glided through the city center, people thought it was two superstars shooting a movie. That scene attracted many people to stop and take pictures while the sports car was waiting for the traffic light. However, Qin Mo's right hand was holding the steering wheel, and his noble and indifferent side profile was almost as fast as the car flashed by, stopping at the entrance of Computer City. Fu Jiu looked at that place and couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Qin Mo stood there, tall and handsome. There weren't many people in the store, but everyone who entered the store was looking in Fu Jiu's direction. To be precise, they were all looking at Almighty Qin. After all, this wasn't the outside world, but a place frequented by people who liked to play games. Qin Mo was recognized by his potential fans as soon as he entered the store. It's Almighty Qin. Is he here to buy accessories too? I didn't expect to see Almighty Qin here. Most of the people who came to buy equipment were boys, and they weren't as crazy as girls. But because of Qin Mo's popularity, it still caused quite a stir. When the store manager heard that Almighty Qin was here, he immediately strode over, not daring to be negligent. After all, for businessmen like them, Qin Mo was not only an esports almighty, but also a young master Qin who could shake the entire Jiang city with a stomp of his feet. The store manager's face was full of smiles. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Fu Jiu standing beside Qin Mo. The mouse-snatching incident happened not long ago. The store manager naturally had an impression of it, especially Fu Jiu's cool silver hair and handsome face. It was hard to forget. But he never expected that this young man would appear with Almighty Qin. The store manager's heart skipped a beat, and his voice shrank a little. Young Master Qin, Qin Mo glanced at the store manager, his tone cold and concise. Which mouse did he see in the afternoon? Take it out. There weren't many words, but the store manager cleared his throat with difficulty. Young Master Qin, we only have one mouse in the store. After it was taken away at noon, we're out of stock. I'll arrange for someone to get the goods, but I'll have to trouble young Master Qin to wait for a while. By the time the manager reached the end of his sentence, he didn't dare to look at Qin Mo's face anymore. Qin Mo's strong aura made him almost unable to lift his head. Qin Mo's voice was still calm. He pointed at Fu Jiu and said to the store manager, "Remember this face. In the future, give him whatever he wants." Yes. The store manager knew that Chairman Qin was here to get back at him. He was glad that he didn't go too far at noon. Otherwise, according to Chairman Qin's style, he wouldn't have let him off so easily. He would have destroyed his store. Chapter 82. Fu Jiu was actually a little surprised. She thought that the digestion the man was talking about was nothing more than racing and enjoying the wind. Now it seemed like. Fu Jiu looked up and smiled at Qin Mo. She didn't expect the Almighty to have such a good understanding of his friends. When Qin Mo turned his head, he saw the youngster looking at him. He arched a brow and tugged the back of his collar. Which one do you like? Pick one. Almighty, there's really no one who would like to be carried around by you like this. As Fu Jiu spoke, she adjusted her collar, still looking handsome and naughty. She turned sideways and said with an evil smile, "If you touch me again, I will think that you are secretly in love with me." Qin Mo was no longer someone who would get angry over such words. He patted the back of the youngster's head and smiled coldly. "Shut up and pick your stuff." It was the first time in Fu Jiu's life that someone had slapped the back of her head. She was caught off guard, and her handsome face was buried in her collar. Since he had brought her here to seek revenge, she couldn't fight back. She just thought that for this, she would have to cheat more from the man later. Almighty Qin didn't care about spending money. Seeing the young man cover the back of his head with one hand after he patted him, and with a face full of unwillingness, the corners of Almighty Qin's mouth subconsciously curved upwards, and his mood improved quite a bit. Fu Jiu could tell that Almighty Qin's hobby now was to bully her. To be honest, before she met Almighty Qin, she just thought this man wasn't easy to deal with. After interacting with him, she realized that this man was a black-hearted person. How could normal people find bullying their friends fun? Almighty Qin was the only one in the entire world. With Qin Mo's popularity, he couldn't stay in Computer City for long. Fu Jiu was also looking at the time. She quickly picked out a bunch of internal parts and a very small outer shell. When she said that she only wanted the shell, the store manager looked at her in surprise. Are you sure you want to buy it this way? What could these scattered things do? Why don't you just buy the finished product? Fu Jiu smiled. Yes. She had to get a better one so that she could type in class without worry. Qin Mo was sitting next to her with his long legs crossed. He was reading an esports magazine. When he heard this, he lifted his eyes towards Fuzhou. His eyes were as deep as an ancient lake. They looked calm, but there were many secrets hidden in them. Fuzhou also noticed that Qin Mo was looking at her. The man already knew that she was a hacker, so there was nothing to hide. She turned her head and smiled at him. I want to make my own laptop. Qin Mo raised his eyebrows and walked over. His slender fingers picked at the pile of spare parts. His businessman nature didn't change. The hard drive here won't do. I have one with me. I'll give it to you when you enter the Qin group. In other words, if she didn't enter the Qin group, she wouldn't even be able to think about it. Inexplicably, Fuzhou understood the hidden meaning in the Almighty's words. What about these things today? If you don't join the Qin group after the competition, you'll have to refund me the original price. As Qin Mo said this, he threw the bag of stuff into the young man's arms. He put one hand in his trouser pocket and smiled faintly. Seeing this, Fuzhou raised her eyebrows. What digestion? It was just a trick he came up with to enslave her better in the future. Chapter 83. Forget it, the Almighty wasn't just shameless for a day or two anyway. These pieces of hardware were really great. The main thing was that she had regained her pride. Fuzhou curled up her lips and took a step forward. She raised her hand and wanted to put it on the man's shoulder to tease him again. Unexpectedly, Qin Mo's reaction was surprisingly fast this time. Before she could put her hand on his shoulder, he grabbed her wrist and turned around to press her against the wall. His breath was cold. You don't want your claws anymore. Fuzhou was still smiling, and her eyes were shining. Almighty Qin, I realized that your ears are very fragile. There were a lot of group owners watching from the side, and everyone who saw this scene couldn't help but widen their eyes. Especially the store manager, who was watching from the side, was trembling. What the hell was going on? They had never heard of young Master Qin having this kind of taste, silver-haired handsome young man. Did the Qin family know about this? The geeks who were buying equipment were also watching, secretly swallowing their saliva. They really wanted to take pictures but didn't dare to. No one dared to mess with Almighty Qin's power. But that kind of posture really made people think the wrong way. Plus, both of their faces were ridiculously good-looking. Both of them seemed to be exuding hormones all the time, so it was inevitable that people would think in that direction. Fuzhou didn't think much of it, but it was really not good to be pressed against the wall like that. Looking at that handsome face right in front of her, her smile became wider, and she turned her head, seeing that the young man was going to blow at him again. Qin Mo used force again and pressed him back against the wall. The light in the bottom of his eyes released a charming color. Fuzhou. It was probably because the young man's face was too young and too small. He couldn't bear to do it, so he pinched him hard. But in order to teach the young man a lesson, Qin Mo still took action. He leaned over domineeringly, and his thin lips were close to the left ear with the black stud. His warm breath matched with his handsome and unruly side profile, giving people an indescribable feeling of ambiguity. But his voice was cold, and it was heavy on the ear, making people feel numb. Big brother, as an experienced person, let me tell you, don't blow at a man's ear casually in the future, understand? With that, Qin Mo straightened his back. He didn't understand how this guy could remain indifferent when he was flirting with someone. It was just that when he saw the porcelain jade white ear, the round and exquisite earlobe, he actually had an urge to play with it. She must have been angered by this fellow who flirted with her regardless of the situation. Even he was affected by it. However, a certain someone still had an evil smile on her face. She didn't seem to be shocked at all. Her beautiful eyes narrowed. Brother. Qin Mo arched a brow and adjusted his tie, looking very restrained. I'm older than you. If I don't call you brother, what should I call you? That was true. But if she took Almighty Qin as her brother, it would be a little stressful. After all, Almighty Qin looked like a profiteer from the beginning. If he tricked her again and made her sign a contract to sell herself or something, Fu Jiu raised her eyebrows. The loss outweighed the gain. Seeing that the youngster was still contemplating, Qin Mo was instantly infuriated. His voice turned cold. What? Is it wrong for you to call me big brother? Of course not. Fu Jiu curled her lips into a smile. But if brother Mo is a brother complex, that would be even better. Chapter 84. 6:00 in the afternoon. Before there was a traffic jam. Fu Jiu and Qin Mo went back to that Michelin restaurant after buying the spare parts. Secretary Liang was already waiting there. He stood at the door in a well-ironed suit, looking at the time from time to time. It wasn't until he saw his CEO's smooth black sports car that he let out a sigh of relief. But the next moment, Secretary Liang's eyes widened. He actually saw someone in the passenger seat of CEO Qin. When Chairman Qin was driving, he rarely let anyone sit next to him. Who was that person? Secretary Liang took another step forward to take a closer look. But in the end, what surprised him was that he had actually seen that person before. Wasn't that the useless young master of the Fu family that CEO Qin met on his way to school? Secretary Liang couldn't be blamed for calling Fu Jiu like that. In fact, as the Fu family's business got bigger and bigger, Fu Jiu's reputation got worse and worse. It wasn't the first time that Secretary Liang had heard of Fu Jiu's name. In Jiang City, anyone from the upper class would sneer when they saw him. How many nightclubs had set him as a no customer? Especially those elegant places, people would simply shake their heads at the mention of his name. Plus, after what happened this time, it seemed like many people were waiting to see He Honghua and her useless son make a fool out of themselves. Although these weren't the main point, how could CEO be with such a person? Thinking about the few friends next to the president, almost all of them came from the military compound. They were either politicians or soldiers. Which one of them wasn't a famous person? But this one. Secretary Liang watched his CEO take the bag from the young man's hand and throw it into the back seat casually. He seemed to be saying, "I'll drive you back later, why are you still taking it?" or something along those lines. Secretary Liang thought that he was either asleep, or there was something wrong with his eyes or ears. CEO Qin. He called out to Qin Mo, but his eyes fell on the young man. As smart as Fu Jiu was, of course, she noticed that Secretary Liang was sizing her up. She didn't say anything and just smiled lightly. Her silver hair and black eyes carried a faint air of nobility. Secretary Liang was shocked. When he met young Master Fu in the past, he wasn't like this. Young Master Fu acted like a nouveau riche and didn't know how to restrain himself. Why did he look so elegant today? However, Secretary Liang was a man of action. He wouldn't say things that weren't meant to be said. Instead, he said to Qin Mo respectfully, "CEO Qin, Boss Li and Boss Zhang are already waiting inside." "Would your friend first, he's going up too," Qin Mo said faintly. Fu Jiu hooked up her lips at him. Secretary Liang watched as the two people walked into the restaurant side by side. He was shocked again. Even though this dinner party was set up by Boss Li and Boss Zhang to curry favor with their Boss Qin was not the only one. But, did this young Master Fu have the right to sit at such a table? It wasn't that Secretary Liang looked down on Fu Jiu, he just found it weird. Since when did their CEO become so close to that disgraced young master of the Fu family? This was the biggest contrast in the upper circle of Rivertown. "I heard that young Master Fu is also good at games and has caught the eye of several teams." No wonder Chairman Qin took you as his godbrother. You are all young talents. Oh, I remember too. Not to be outdone, Boss Lee also tried to curry favor with him. Speaking of which, young Master Fu is really different from your elder brother. That young Master Fu is really. When Secretary Liang heard this, he knew that Boss Lee had mistaken him for someone else, so he was about to stop him. Chapter 86. I really can't say. President Lee shook his head. His taste is far from second young Master Fu's. Even his mother came from the countryside. She is illiterate, but she still wanted to start a company. She didn't think about her own ability, and in the end, she was still tricked by your father. It's one thing to say that this son is a joke, but even his mother is the same. Isn't she just trying to make fun of others? Boss Zhang agreed. I heard that he has some special hobbies. No wonder Boss Fu removed his name from the Fu family. If I had a son like him, I would be very angry. Luckily, Boss Fu still has you, second young Master Fu. Secretary Liang listened to these two and felt that it was over. It was really over. Although their CEO didn't say anything from the beginning to the end, from the smile on his face and the way he flicked the ash off his cigarette, one could tell that he was exuding an endless coldness. Since CEO recognized young Master Fu as his younger brother, it meant that he was treating him as one of his own. CEO was always protective of his own people. Who knew what would happen next? Fujio supported her chin with her left hand, looking like a playboy. It seems that Boss Lee and Boss Zhang have never seen that illegitimate son, or else they wouldn't have recognized him. What a pity, I am that young Master Fu with special hobbies. Instantly, Mr. Li's and Mr. Zhang's faces changed. The smile at the corner of his mouth stiffened. This was probably the most embarrassing situation they had ever faced in their business. Their faces were burning, and they wanted to find a crack in the ground to hide in. But CEO Qin was still sitting in front of them, and no one could tell whether he was happy or angry from his noble and handsome face. Did this mean that there was still room for negotiation? Thinking of this, Boss Lee slapped his forehead. Look at my eyes, I really didn't recognize empty tie. I will punish myself with a glass of wine, a glass of wine. I heard too much from others before, so I have a prejudice against young Master Fu. This wine must be drunk. Boss Zhang also raised his head and raised his glass. When the two of them drank the wine, they felt a little bitter. No matter how hard they racked their brains, they would never have imagined that young Master Qin would have any connections with a notorious nouveau riche. That was why he subconsciously treated Fu Jiu as the second son of the Fu family. Now, he had been slapped in the face. It was painful. However, Fu Jiu didn't plan on forgiving them. Her previous self was problematic, but He Honghua wasn't a joke. Lord Zhou definitely didn't want to be made fun of like this. Her eyes were cold, and she stood up with a half-smile. She said extremely coldly, Brother Mo, you guys eat first. Just like what these two CEOs said, I don't have good taste and self-restraint. I can't eat this meal or drink this glass of wine in front of people I don't like. Manager Li and Manager Zhang's hands that were about to raise their glasses stopped. They thought to themselves that this temper was giving him face. If it wasn't for young Master Qin, who would have toasted him? If he said that, not only would they lose face, but also young Master Qin's. Even if young Master Qin recognized him as his little brother, did he really treat him as his own? Young Master Qin would let him go wherever he wanted, even if they didn't do anything. Chapter 87. Hearing that, Boss Li and Boss Zhang were dumbfounded. They watched helplessly as young Master Qin stood up himself. He was wearing a well-ironed suit with a black jacket draped over his shoulders. He looked noble and condescending. The man was still holding Fu Jiu in his hand. He glanced at them, and the coldness in his eyes made their hearts tremble. Young Master Qin, about our business today. Boss Li still wanted them to stay. Qin Mo laughed viciously. Do you think I'll like someone my brother doesn't like? It was just one sentence, but it was enough to make the two of them feel fear. It was as if a freezing chill had drilled into their bones. Young Master Qin, this is all a misunderstanding, young Master Qin. The two of them desperately wanted to explain. They chased all the way from the restaurant to the outside, but they were blocked by the bodyguards in black. They couldn't take another step. The two of them were anxious. They licked their dry lips and looked at Secretary Liang, who was at the back. Secretary Liang, can you help us talk to young Master Qin, or young Master Fu? If he doesn't like us, we can change it. Secretary Liang pushed up his glasses and looked at his CEO's left hand that was holding the young man's wrist. He wondered when his CEO's misophobia was cured, but he still didn't forget to deal with the two in front of him. Boss Li and Boss Zhang, CEO Qin's eyes are sharper than anyone else's. He could tell from your attitudes when you were drinking just now. Let me give you a suggestion. Don't mess around with our CEO Qin anymore. He's protective. He even said something like, my brother. It seemed like the CEO was serious about protecting that young master of the Fu family. Fortunately, these two stood in front of him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to tell what the CEO meant. Secretary Liang decided that from now on, he would do whatever young Master Fu said. Pissing off young Master Fu was equivalent to pissing off their CEO. The consequences were unimaginable. Hearing Secretary Liang's words, Boss Li and Boss Zhang both froze on the spot. Their faces were ashen. The more they cursed in their hearts, the more they regretted it now. If they knew that young Master Qin cared so much about that young master of the Fu family, they wouldn't have looked down on him. Now, they were willing to drink a bottle of wine as an apology. But everyone in Jiang City knew young Master Qin's temper. He wouldn't give them a second chance. This business deal was over. Right now, they were praying that young Master Qin would quickly forget about them. Otherwise, their companies might not be able to continue operating. What did that useless young master of the Fu family do to make young Master Qin protect him like this? It was strange that the two of them knew each other. Young Master Qin really treated him like a little brother. If this news was released, the entire business circle would be shocked. In fact, Fu Jiu didn't expect that Qin Mo would go this far for her. She thought that calling him brother was just a form of address. What are you waiting for? Get in the car. Qin Mo opened the car door casually. His side profile was still handsome and charming. This time, Secretary Liang was driving, and both of them sat in the back seat. Fu Jiu caught Secretary Liang looking at her from the rearview mirror more than once. She winked at him with an evil smile. Secretary Liang's hand slipped, and the car almost went off course. Chapter 88. Many people know that I have only slept for 2 hours since yesterday morning. I have spent the rest of my time defending my rights. The act of the infringer is to make use of the school hunks fans and infringe upon the school hunks copyright without my authorization. According to the perpetrator, she was helping to set up a fan club, claiming that they want to be the support group I described in my article. Thank you, but I don't need your help. I'm the copyright owner of this book. The School Hunks fan club has always been around, in 10-cent bookstore and on official channels. The School Hunks official manager, Lu Bebe, Sister Turtle, who appeared in the novel, is the person I described in the novel, not someone you guys brought in by force. It felt like the characters in the book were about to cry from the humiliation. Don't cry. Daddy will make you look more handsome in the future. This incident could also be used as material to write about. After all, the little cuties in 10-cent bookstores fan club were doing charity every day to make the school hunk better and better. You, on the other hand, are infringing on the original author's painstaking efforts and obstructing the development of the school hunk. There would be no harm without comparison. As for infringement, the law clearly states that a work of the same genre without the authorization of the original author is an infringement. Now the infringer is defending himself. They like the school hunk. They are genuine fans. Our genuine fans are self-righteous. Excuse me. It must be because I didn't sleep enough to hear such a dumb joke. My fans are the cutest fans in the world. They are young and sometimes deceived. I wanted to thank them in every way I could think of. It's not wrong to say that they're infringers, but they don't understand why we're defending our rights. The group of people replied with anger that came from the depths of their hearts. It came from protecting. No one would remain silent when they saw something they liked being destroyed. As a school grassland author, I called out to those who truly liked the school hunk. Reason complains. He only complained about the 4719555018 group. Don't get involved in anything else, and don't care about anything else. We only complain about 4719555018. You don't need to join the group to complain. You can just click on the top right corner to complain. When he saw some strange comments. For example, admin, you have to hold on. We love this book so much. You have to withstand the pressure and work hard. For example, if we like a book, we don't need to like the author. In such a situation, don't be angry. Hug my babies, don't be angry. It hurts to see you guys angry. As for those who are saying these things, I know that you don't really like this book, and you don't care that the creator's hard work is being lost, and you don't care that you're ruining the school hunk and stealing it. But in this world, there was a saying. Justice may be late, but it will never be absent. The original author could not be protected for the time being. The school hunk was temporarily unprotected. But that didn't mean they would never be protected. The infringers were clamoring for a lawyer's letter and a statement. Therefore, this statement must be posted here. In order to protect my rights, I will definitely reduce the number of updates. The like mentioned by the violator had already damaged the school hunk. If one day I break even more, he must be dealing with this infringement case. So be prepared, dear ones. It's a pity that I've spared these 2 days to prepare for writing. I really don't have the time to defend my rights. Infringement was the bottom line. If they couldn't handle it, they could only defend their rights. The infringers were too unsightly. Also, I would like to thank the beauty who has been helping me complain and defend my rights. I will start legal proceedings to defend my rights. The perpetrator probably didn't dare to reveal her real name. We'll find out, but it'll take time. So dear ones, give me some strength, let us get through this together. We're not white lotuses. We won't be like the infringers, saying that we're wronged and that it's not wrong. We will only defend our rights and protect the current school hunk. When she got out of the car, she turned sideways to pick up the computer parts she had bought. Between her white top and black belt, her smooth and fair waist was exposed. It was a breathtaking curve. Young master, in fact, what hurt Madame the most was not that they had left, but that she had been betrayed by the person closest to her. Chen Xiaodong's eyes turned red at the end. After hearing this, Fu Jiu stopped going upstairs. She put on the jacket she had just taken off. Her silver hair was blown away by the wind, and her eyes were full of coldness. Wait a minute, where are you going? Chen Xiaodong followed behind. Just as she was about to move, her phone rang. It was a WeChat message from Almighty Qin. Where are you? Internet cafe. Fu Jiu didn't even think before she replied with 2 words. Qin Mo sat on the office chair and arched a brow. I'm asking where your game is. I won't be farming today. I have something to do. Fu Jiu typed very fast. Qin Mo's deep eyes dimmed. Did someone offend you again? Is that why you went to the internet cafe to deal with them? Just like Director Zhang last time. Fu Jiu tilted her head and replied with a voice message, Brother Mo, don't talk nonsense. I'm just looking for someone to play a game with. Chapter 92. Fu Jiu looked at the increasing number of viewers on the live broadcast platform, and she smiled. It would be great if Brother Mo could come. Hearing the deep voice, Qin Mo knew something was up. He tilted his head and lit a cigarette. He tapped on the keyboard and entered the game. Following the code the youngster gave him, he automatically came to a live broadcast platform. There were 3 youngsters on the screen, wearing the new team uniform, and they were being interviewed online. I heard that the 3 of you just changed companies. How are the benefits this time? The fans are very concerned about the benefits you mentioned on Weibo. Liang Shuguang was the most handsome among them, so he was the one who mainly spoke. He wore headphones and sat in front of the computer. When the camera turned to him, he smiled and said, the new company is more than 10 times better than the previous company that cheated people. Those who like us can rest assured. In the future, we will work hard to present a better condition for everyone. I've heard about the previous company, and it was really not that good. To increase the exposure, the host didn't end the topic. Liang Shuguang said yes, then shrugged his shoulders. There's nothing we can do about it. The boss is from the countryside. He likes to yell and shout at people. I think the people in the team can't stand it, so they left. A boss who doesn't know how to respect others won't last long. The host closed the book and smiled. But you guys have met a talent scout, and your future development will definitely get better and better. Liang Shuguang also smiled. I think so too. Okay, let's stop talking. I'm sure the fans and friends are waiting anxiously. The host pretended to be excited and said, my colleagues were just saying that the 3 of you are all masters on the rankings, and you are worshipped by many people. The previous company didn't know how to advertise, which delayed your development. Now, you can finally open our eyes. Now it's time for the Almighties to enter the game. Fans, if you have any questions, you can ask them on the live broadcast platform. Remember to send gifts. As soon as the host finished speaking, the live broadcast platform was flooded by one person. It was Fu Jiu. She was wearing black headphones, and her silver hair was shining. Since you are the Almighties, do you dare to accept a match on the spot? How could such a message come out? This was not following the script at all. The host furrowed his brows and subconsciously turned to look at the director. However, the director gestured for her to continue the broadcast. What was even more strange was that he didn't know if there was a problem with the network. Their platform seemed to have been controlled by someone, and all the other fans couldn't say anything at this moment. Thus, the words that resembled a battle invitation dominated the entire screen like a cold mountain night. There was no one who didn't know what the words webcast meant. If he were to reject her now, he would be losing face before he even made his debut. And looking at that avatar, it seemed to be a newbie. What an arrogant fellow. Since he wanted to be beaten up, he would fulfill his wish. Chapter 93. Coach. Qin Mo was among the audience watching the live stream. With a cigarette between his slender fingers, he loosened his tie when he saw the 2 words. He sat on the high-end leather chair with his legs slightly crossed and a cold smile on his face. someone at this level was qualified to coach his little brother. Thinking of the clean and elegant young man before, and then looking at Liang Shuguang, who had a smug look on his face, Qin Mo instantly felt that his little brother was many times better. It would be even better if he could change his flirting habit. Of course, Almighty Qin didn't realize that his current thinking was a typical brother con. In the internet cafe, Fu Jiu was wearing her black headphones. She smiled evilly and replied with one word, "You." "Me?" Liang Shuguang laughed even louder. "My dear fan, I advise you to choose the other two. If I fight with you, your HP will be depleted very quickly." Fu Jiu held the lollipop in her mouth and sneered. "How would you know without fighting?" "What? You don't dare to take it." "My dear fan, I'm giving you a chance that won't be too embarrassing. Since you don't cherish this chance, come on." Liang Shuguang moved his fingers and entered the hero. Instantly, two game characters appeared on the screen, facing each other. Fu Jiu's account couldn't be any more new, but if Liang Shuguang had taken this match seriously and looked at her record, he wouldn't have been so full of himself. A new account had completed 29 first clears in a short period of 1 month. This kind of data would be top-notch in any club. But Liang Shuguang only saw that this player named Spade Z didn't even have any decent clothes on him. He only had an inconspicuous bronze sword on his back, and it was a gift from the grocery store after learning the skill. Liang Shuguang's disdain deepened. "Friend, your equipment is too lousy. Do you need me to let you have a few moves first?" "No need." After Fu Jiu typed, she spat out the lollipop in her mouth and skillfully picked a chocolate-flavored one into her mouth. She tilted her head and smiled. Do professional players talk so much during a match? Liang Shuguang narrowed his eyes. Was she shameless? In that case, let's begin. Liang Shuguang's sneer could be seen by everyone watching the live broadcast. Zhang Yingchao and Nie Su encouraged him. "Shuguang, he's just an amateur. Just teach him a little, don't take it too seriously." "Alright, give me a minute. Once everyone's settled down, we'll livestream the dungeon." Liang Shuguang confidently put on his headphones and placed his fingers on the keyboard, waiting for the game's 3-second countdown. He wanted to stun his opponent first and then use a few moves to destroy him. This way, it would be more interesting to watch on the live broadcast. Chapter 94. Lost? He actually lost in front of his fans. Liang Sudong's frozen expression was transmitted to every corner of the country through the live broadcast. How long had it been? 10 seconds. 20 seconds. Definitely less than half a minute. And the result? Liang Shuguang, who was yelling about teaching someone a lesson, was killed in seconds as soon as the game started. Everyone who was watching the live broadcast was shocked. Many players in the internet cafes even stopped playing games and stood up to watch the big screen in the internet cafes. They were crazily scrolling through the screen, and that fiery scene couldn't be controlled at all. Who the hell is this guy? He's so handsome, so handsome. Wait a minute, I think I can leave a message. Quick, ask who he is. Is he from some professional league? Absolutely not. Why do I feel like his game name is a bit familiar? F***CK. I remember, Spade Z. He's the Spade Z who swept the first clears in Zone C. Why do I feel like Spade Z hid his achievements on purpose? You don't say. I feel the same way, ha 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 ha. My big Spade is so two-faced. What new king of professional league? He's so weak in front of me, the great Spade. He just said that he would let his opponent win, but he didn't even use any skills. What an embarrassing slap to the face. The boss of the internet cafes couldn't compare with these youngsters. Although he liked playing games, he wasn't that crazy about idols. When he walked over with the Coke that the customer ordered, he accidentally looked at the silver-haired young man's computer and was stunned. The young man who said that he wasn't good at playing hero had pure black headphones on his head and a lollipop in his mouth. His side profile was so handsome that he looked like he walked out of a comic book. He was in a one-on-one battle with someone in the arena. With a shake of the mouse, the intense and beautiful operation stopped abruptly, and the whole screen was filled with the silver victory sign. He didn't look like someone who didn't know how to play at all. Instead, he looked like a master among masters. The boss walked over and wanted to take a closer look. But after he saw the game character on the screen clearly, his eyes shook violently. Spade. Spade Z. Fu Jiu looked like she had just gotten out of a fight. She looked back fiercely with a lollipop in her mouth. She put her slender fingers on her lips and made a shushing gesture with an evil smile. The boss was really shocked. He looked at the young man's androgynous face, and then looked at the 200-inch LCD screen hanging on the wall of his internet cafe, which was still playing the live broadcast. The excited voice echoed throughout the internet cafe. Every gamer deeply worshipped Spade Z at this moment. That beautiful and arrogant movement, that explosive strike, that elegant move that struck the enemy in an inch of space. But this godly player, who had been repeatedly picked by professional teams, was actually sitting in his internet cafe and playing games. What's more, he was using a machine that cost 5 yuan per hour. He had always been treated as a high school kid who only knew how to play single-player games. Who would have thought? Excitement, astonishment, and vexation filled his chest. In the end, the boss couldn't take it anymore. He clutched his chest and said, "I'm going to have a cup of cold water to calm myself down." Moreover, he knew that Guy's hand speed better than anyone else. Cheat code. Who was he trying to humiliate? Did he think his brother was the same as these idiots? Qin Mo raised his head and took a sip of red wine. He freed one hand and leaned over, typing a few words on the keyboard. "Since you guys are so doubtful, have a round with me. I won't bring any equipment either." Such a cold sentence was sent out. All of a sudden, the live broadcast screen was stuck for a few tenths of a second. Even Fu Jiu felt that moment of pause. She had clearly released her authority, but at that moment, no one spoke. It was as if the whole world had fallen silent. Right after that, Chapter 96. Almighty, Almighty Qin. It's really Almighty Qin. Almighty Qin's letter of challenge. Holy **T. This is not a dream. I can watch Almighty Qin play live again. I want to see his hands. The internet cafe where Fu Jiu was also affected. The players watching the big screen were all petrified the moment Qin Mo appeared. Then, they all screamed excitedly. The whole internet cafe was bustling as if it was New Year's Eve. Except for Fu Jiu, who was still sitting in front of her computer, all the other computers were empty. Everyone was looking at the TV screen with shining eyes, yelling for the boss to turn up the volume. Qin Mo, Qin Mo, Qin Mo. Just looking at those 2 words was enough to make one's blood boil. Except for the annual All-Stars live broadcast, Almighty Qin would appear on the live broadcast platform. Today, he actually came. The audience were just onlookers after all, and the one who was really scared was Liang Shihuang. Almighty Qin sent that sentence for him to see. How could his skills be better than Almighty Qin's? He might even die more miserably than before. The host was also shocked when she saw the name of the game, and then women's thoughts started to run wild. She didn't play games, but in Jiang City, there was no woman who didn't want to be close to young Master Qin. The host was lost in thought, thinking about how to talk to young Master Qin later. Finally, the director backstage couldn't help it anymore. He walked over, pulled the host back, and raised the microphone. I think the audience is in the same mood as me. You all want Almighty Qin to make a move, right? The director said what everyone was thinking. Now, they didn't care about Liang Shuguang anymore. They just hoped that Almighty Qin would turn on the camera. The number of views on the live broadcast platform instantly reached 10 million, and many media outlets started to enter. The agents of other clubs even called the players at this time. Go on the live broadcast. Qin Mo wants to PK. You guys watch. Rather than asking them to watch, it was better to ask them to learn. Almighty Qin never PK unless he led his team to fight in a competition. This was a rare opportunity in 100 years. At the same time, Feng Yi, who was still talking about his next sponsorship, received the news. He put down his glass and looked at the CEO of his partner seriously. Do you have XX live broadcast software on your phone? Almighty, young Master Qin, my ancestor, do you know how much your endorsement fee is? He just casually appeared on the live streaming platform. Secretary Liang didn't dare to look at his CEO's face anymore. To be honest, who would go on a live broadcast to pick a fight over a younger brother? Young Master Qin was definitely the first in history. He was too protective. No, he couldn't let his imagination run wild. The CEO is straight. It was just that he grew up alone. Now that he had a younger brother, he more or less had the tendency of a younger brother complex. That's right, it's a sibling complex. Qin Mo didn't care about the impact he had caused. He had always been known for being domineering and aloof. He just raised his eyebrows and typed 5 words. Are you going to fight or not? There wasn't even a punctuation mark, and his tone was so cold that it could freeze people to death. Liang Shuguang sat in front of the computer. Even though the heat in the broadcasting room was turned on, he still couldn't help but tremble. Meeting Almighty Qin as soon as he debuted would only cause him to be one-sidedly destroyed. At that time, people would only remember his cowardly appearance, and no one would like him anymore. Chapter 97. Liang Shuguang desperately wanted to retreat, but the director pressed his shoulder hard. Of course, Shuguang, it's your honor to have Almighty Qin guiding you. What honor? How could it be an honor? If he really fought with Almighty Qin, he would never be able to get rid of the word ugly in his career. Director Li, Liang Shuguang still wanted to say something. But the director cut him off and whispered in his ear, if you don't fight this time, don't ever think about fighting again. The intention of the threat was obvious. The platform looked at the traffic benefits. If he didn't fight and Almighty Qin didn't make a move, how could the ratings soar? What? Do you really think you're a god? Your boss didn't poach you to make you lose money. Continue broadcasting, and you'll be rewarded later. Liang Shuguang finally understood that after entering the new company, he could no longer do whatever he wanted like before. In the eyes of the new boss, players like them were just chess pieces. These people wouldn't consider his future, they only cared about the benefits in front of them. Liang Shuguang sat back down with a defeated face. After logging into the game, he saw the godlike character in front of him. He clenched his teeth and wanted to make his last resistance. However, Almighty Qin's attack wasn't as fierce as Spade Z's. Instead, he froze his body so that he couldn't even move. He let him bleed bit by bit. Liang Shuguang thought that it would only take him a few seconds to lose face. But Almighty Qin seemed to be playing with him, making him embarrassed for 3 whole minutes. In these 3 minutes, he was as ugly as he could get. The laughter coming from the screen was so piercing. In the end, Liang Shuguang couldn't take it anymore. He took off his headphones and threw them on the table. This way of dying was even more pathetic than before. After all, the Qin family was a warlord. No matter how handsome and elegant Qin Mo was, he was ruthless in his attacks. After killing him, CEO Qin typed a line of words with a calm expression. "Look at how slow my movements are. Do I look like I'm using a cheat?" That was a slap in the face. Liang Shuguang's expression froze, and he had to smile along with the director. Many of Almighty Qin's fans heard their idol's words. Don't play if you don't know how to play. You accuse others of cheating when you get insta-killed. Do you think such a player is fit to be a professional player? He's indeed unworthy. This time, it was someone from another team who spoke up. The name of the great god was clearly hanging there. From this, it could be seen how many pro players were online on the streaming platform. The preview traffic had reached an unprecedented peak. The broadcasting director asked someone to switch the picture to the screen, and the excitement in his eyes was so obvious. Liang Shuguang felt extremely embarrassed and wanted to get up and leave. What he didn't expect was that this wasn't the end. A clear and mischievous voice came through the microphone, with the unique chuckle of a teenager. "What? You want to leave? Liang Shuguang, do you think that I will let you go at this point? What did you say just now? You came from the countryside and like to be noisy, right? When you said this, you seem to have forgotten that you also came from the countryside. Back then, you were so poor that you could only eat instant noodles in the internet cafe. It was the boss that you looked down on the most who recruited you into the company. He took care of your food and accommodation. When you didn't have any talent, he treated you well." Chapter 98. As soon as Fu Jiu said that, the live broadcast platform went into an uproar immediately. Even the staff next to him looked at Liang Shuguang in surprise. It seemed that no one expected the inside story to be like this. Liang Shuguang didn't have the face to look at the camera anymore. He tried his best to cover his face with his hands. However, Fu Jiu's voice didn't stop. She just sat in the noisy crowd with her legs slightly crossed, like a king in control of the whole scene. Under her silver hair was a thin half-smile. While everyone was staring at the big screen and watching the live broadcast, no one knew that in the corner of the internet cafe, a handsome young man wearing black headphones was moving his hands and playing with the whole world. Now you know how to be embarrassed. Didn't you just laugh at He Honghua's company for not being good at training people? Liang Shuguang, Zhang Yingqiao, and Nie Su, I can tell you now that I am a player under He Corporation. How can it be enough to beat you up just once? Go back and tell your boss that I will slap all her students' faces until they are swollen in the selection contest. As Fu Jiu's voice fell, the live broadcast platform's traffic broke 100 million. It turned out that this wasn't a PK between ordinary fans, but a declaration of war between two teams. The media smelled the scent of gossip, and they swarmed in like a tide. Countless people on the screen asked, which company is He Corporation? Some people were shocked, because anyone who had heard of He Corporation knew that it was a company that was about to go bankrupt. Spade Z, who swept Zone C as soon as he debuted, won 29 matches, and defeated a professional player in just 18 seconds, turned out to be a signed student of this company. They thought a lot about Spade Z's background, but no one expected that this mysterious master actually came from this company. That night, He Honghua's phone exploded with calls from investors. She didn't know what was going on, but she heard the people on the other end shouting fiercely, "Boss He, why didn't you tell me earlier that our company had such a player? Spade Z. If you had told me earlier, would I have withdrawn my investment? I will tear up the contract, and we will continue to work together. This time, I will invest another 500,000, okay?" He Honghua looked at her phone in a daze. She still couldn't believe that the investors who had been forcing her to pay back the money wanted to increase their investment, and they even called her boss He. This was even rarer than a pie falling from the sky. He Honghua's first reaction was that he must be a swindler. How could there be such a good thing in the world? He must be thinking of a way to take away the last bit of money she had left. But the first call was fine. Then, she received a total of 8 phone calls. 5 of them were from investors, and the other 3 were from the most famous local media in Jiang City. They wanted to interview their company's player, whose game name was Spade Z. She had heard of this Spade Z, the almighty who swept through Zone C. But their company didn't have a player named Spade Z. The media even asked her to send a photo to them so that it would be good for their publicity. The key was that she really didn't have such a person on her side. He Honghua was confused. Chapter 99. He Honghua didn't know how to read, let alone how to open the link. In the end, Chen Xiaodong came over, and the two of them looked at the computer together. They took the video and watched it from beginning to end. When Chen Xiaodong heard the last part, he couldn't even sit still anymore. He stood up and yelled, "That was so King satisfying. Madam, now the whole country knows what kind of people these 3 are, and no one will support them in the future. They deserve to terminate the contract with us." Spade Z. He Honghua vaguely felt that the voice sounded familiar, but she couldn't remember where she had heard it before. "Why did he help me?" Chen Xiaodong laughed. "He must have helped you because he saw injustice. Madam, you don't know that these online masters love to turn things around. But we don't have such a person in our company. How am I going to explain when the media calls?" He Honghua was a boss after all, so she had to think more than others. Chen Xiaodong was also troubled. In fact, he didn't understand why Spade Z still said that he was from their company when everything was over. If their company had such a god, Madam wouldn't have to worry to this extent. Just as he was thinking about this, the door was pushed open. The young man had a skateboard under his left arm, and his right hand was fiddling with his wet hair. His whole body was covered with the smell of rain, and his handsome face was revealed. "Mom, why did you come back so early today?" He Honghua was happy to see her daughter now. She held Fu Jiu's hand and said, "Jiu, our company is saved." Oh. Fu Jiu already knew what was going on. She wouldn't make a move if it wasn't for her own benefit. She only curled up her thin lips and smiled evilly. "Did those investors call you to increase their stakes?" He Honghua was happy, and her voice became louder. "Not only the investors, even the media called to promote our company." "Wait, how did you know that the investors wanted to increase their stakes?" "Of course I'll pay attention to Mom." Fu Jiu freed one hand to grab He Honghua's huge waist and brought her to the sofa. Hearing this, He Honghua was so touched that she didn't think about the whole thing. Her rough hands couldn't bear to let go of her daughter. "Jiu, when Mom makes money this time, I'll hand over the company to you. Those things aren't hard to do. Don't worry, Mom will watch you from the side and won't let others laugh at you. With Mom here, of course I'm not worried." Fu Jiu chuckled and put her arm around the old lady's shoulder. "Let's talk about the media first. How are they going to promote the company?" He Honghua didn't realize that her daughter was trying to get information out of her. She tugged at her curly hair in annoyance. "They said they wanted to interview a gaming god called Spade Z, but we don't have such a person in our company. We can't just make someone appear out of thin air." Fu Jiu smiled, looking a little flirtatious. "Mom is right. You didn't let it get to your head." The unexpected compliment made He Honghua blush. How could their daughter be so handsome? Chapter 100. He Honghua's eyes lit up when she heard that. "Jiu, how did you come up with this gimmick? Our company can make a lot of money this way." Fu Jiu didn't say anything and just smiled faintly. Soon, He Honghua thought of something and frowned again. But we don't have Spade Z in our company. We can't lie to people like this, right? Mom, how can this be a lie? Fu Jiu patted He Honghua's shoulder and said in a low voice, I watched the live broadcast today. Since Spade Z said that he belongs to our company, then he will definitely appear in the gaming contest. Otherwise, his reputation will be ruined. So don't worry about this. He will definitely appear, and you can deal with the media boldly. When He Honghua heard her daughter's suggestion, she skipped over to return the call to her friend from the media. Chen Xiaodong looked at his young master's electrifying eyes and said seriously, Young master, why do I feel that you were intentionally flirting with madam? What are you trying to hide? Xiaodong. Fu Jiu stretched out her arm and put it on her little boy servant's shoulder. Haven't you realized this after watching so many movies? The more you know, the faster you die. I've been playing games all night, and I'm tired. Go make me a sandwich and pour me a glass of wine, and I'll consider not killing you. Chen Xiaodong's hair stood up when his young master put him on the shoulder. I'll go now. Young master, don't try to turn me gay. Turn him gay. Fu Jiu raised her pretty eyebrows and thought that even if she wanted to turn him gay, she would find Almighty Qin. Why would she find a little kid? Fu Jiu blew the hair on her forehead and took out her phone that was vibrating. It was a WeChat message from Qin Mo. A few short words with the same cold tone, it's raining outside. Don't hang out at the internet cafe if you have nothing to do. Fu Jiu wiped her hair with a towel and looked at He Honghua, who was on the phone. If her mother knew that she had found such a godson for her, how would she react? Brother Mo, I'm home. After saying that, in order to prove that she wasn't lying, Fu Jiu took a selfie and sent it over. Qin Mo looked at the youngster's face, which was still dripping with water. It was unbelievably tender, as though even the hair on her face was sticking to it. Her beautiful and exquisite collarbone was revealed. Qin Mo's fingers paused. He placed his phone down and stared at the traffic outside the floor-to-ceiling window. After a few seconds of silence, he picked up the phone again. His tone was firm and commanding. I told you, don't send me such pictures again. Go to sleep now. I'll pick you up from school tomorrow. Fu Jiu was confused again. What was wrong with her picture? Isn't it quite clear? No one could guess the Almighty's thoughts. However, there was one thing that had to be put on the agenda. Since she had already announced that she was going to make San suffer in the esports competition, she had to recruit enough people. Fu Jiu rested her chin on her fingers and suddenly smiled. Let's go to the game during class tomorrow. We can use the parts that the Almighty bought tonight. When He Honghua came back from the phone call, her daughter was gone. Only the red wine was gone, and Chen Xiaodong's sandwich was still in the same place. Where's Joe? She asked. She turned sideways and hooked her black school bag back. Her school uniform was half unbuttoned, and she said faintly, You don't want to be next to Shui Yao Yao, do you? The boy opened his mouth with a pale face. Who would like to be next to such a woman? He didn't dare to call her fat pig anymore. He was afraid that Fu Jiu would kick him to death again. Why didn't he realize that this gay was so fierce when he fought? Chapter 102. Everyone in the classroom was shocked when they saw Fu Jiu hugging Shui Yao Yao. Some of the girls had their eyes wide open as they looked at this scene in disbelief. Shui Yao Yao herself froze from the beginning. She wanted to say thank you, but she was afraid that if she opened her mouth, she wouldn't be able to stop crying. But Fu Jiu acted like nothing had happened. She sat down on the chair, put her left hand on Shui Yaoyao's back casually, and smiled lightly. The buns from last time were delicious. Do you have any more today? Shui Yaoyao didn't say anything. She nodded and shook her head. She looked down, and big drops of tears fell onto the textbook one after another. She didn't understand why she didn't cry when she was bullied like that. But the youngster's most ordinary greeting could make her cry uncontrollably. Shui Yaoyao thought that maybe the hug just now was too warm, so warm that she could turn a blind eye to the humiliation. No more. Fu Jiu touched her belly regretfully. Then she moved her left hand, and a lollipop appeared in front of Shui Yaoyao. She had a smile on her face. Take it, girls need to eat sweets. The surrounding students looked at the interaction between the two with envy and jealousy. The prettiest girl in the class couldn't figure out what was so good about that fat pig that Fu Jiu would treat him like this. Is Fu Jiu really in love with that fat pig? Not necessarily. Didn't they say that Fu Jiu is gay? Look at his attitude towards girls. Does he look like a gay? He is obviously straight. But he liked handsome Jiang and said that he wanted to keep almighty Qin. How do you explain that? I don't care. Anyway, my Highness Jiu is straight now. In order to protect Fu Jiu's reputation, the school had set up a small group of fans. They affectionately called Fu Jiu Highness Jiu. Because every time their highness appeared, that evil look, that attitude of oppressing scumbags, that bright and translucent eyes, that calm demeanor in front of the media, was very much like the ancient princes who held great power. As a result, the phrase, His Highness the Ninth, quickly appeared. Perhaps it was because birds of a feather flocked together, but everyone who liked Fu Jiu had very good values. For example, they had long wanted to stand up for what happened today, but their individual power was limited. Plus, that boy was not someone to be messed with in school, and he had connections with people outside the school. Just when the three of them were hesitating whether to stand up for him or not, they saw His Highness Jiu kick him. That action was extremely cool, and the kick was really satisfying. From that moment on, they decided that regardless of whether His Highness Jiu was straight or gay, they would protect this young man. Fu Jiu had no idea that she had gained 3 fans because of her actions. After assembling her laptop for a whole day yesterday, she just wanted to lie on her desk and sleep. It could be said that Fu Jiu slept through the first 2 classes. With Shui Yaoyao covering for her, the teacher didn't notice. Jiang Feiyang, who was sitting on the other side, was a little absent-minded. He always wanted to look forward in the morning. He never thought that the weakling who once said that he liked him would actually be willing to not be his deskmate anymore. Chapter 103. When Fu Jiu woke up again, it was already the 3rd period between classes. She didn't know what Jiang Feiyang was thinking, but he actually walked to her side, knocked on her desk, and asked in a low voice, "Are you really going to sit here?" Fu Jiu looked at him with interest, and her left hand supported her chin lazily. Her gaze made Jiang Feiyang sober up immediately. What was he doing? Was he trying to make this little weakling go back? He was crazy. But young Master Jiang still bit the bullet and said, "Actually, you don't have to do this. The teacher will rearrange the seats next Monday, and let Shui Yaoyao sit with the girls. I think it's not bad here." Fu Jiu smiled. At least I don't have to worry about being reported in class. Jiang Feiyang knew that he was talking about him, and his face turned pale. He felt that this little weakling was completely unreasonable. He had already given him a way out, but he didn't want to. Do whatever you want. Jiang Feiyang threw down this sentence and went back to his seat. His eyes were still filled with anger, and the girls who liked him didn't understand what was wrong with him. Shui Yaoyao also raised her head. Will I be a bad influence on you? Influence? Fu Jiu took out the modified English textbook from the desk and curled up her lips. I'm the last student, so why should I be afraid of being influenced? You are better at studying than me, especially in physics. Is that really for humans to learn? This wasn't the first time Fu Jiu complained about physics, and it was obvious how much she hated this subject. Shui Yaoyao looked at the silver-haired young man sitting next to her with thin lips. Because he had just woken up, there were still a few strands of hair on top of his head. They were messy and a bit casual, as if they could grow a pair of ears. He was so handsome that it made people think that he was shamelessly cute. Shui Yaoyao had never been as happy as she was now. Shui Yaoyao really liked Fu Jiu, and it wasn't the kind of love between a man and a woman. She knew that she didn't deserve the young man with her looks, and she wanted to repay him from the bottom of her heart. Even if he didn't need it, she wanted to make the young man feel comfortable. In the future, if you have any questions about physics, I can. Before Shui Yaoyao could finish, the phone next to Fu Jiu's hand rang. It wasn't a ringtone, but a vibration. No matter what, the school didn't allow students to bring their mobile phones, but rules were rules. Not many people would not bring their mobile phones. Fu Jiu gestured for him to wait for a moment and then swiped the screen open. It was a WeChat message from Qin Mo. His voice was cold and indifferent, and he sounded like an abstinent CEO. I'll be near school at noon. Come out, I'll take you out for lunch. Socializing? I'm not going, I'll take a stroll in the game later. Brother Mo. I'm really still a student. Fu Jiu always felt that going to school wasn't that important in Almighty Qin's eyes. How could a straight-A student like him, who was guaranteed a spot in a prestigious university before even graduating, understand the pain of being a slacker? Sigh. Qin Mo paused for a moment, then used the tone of an older brother to remind her again, pay attention in class. Fu Jiu laughed when she heard that. She tilted her head and sent a voice message over. Don't worry, I'm usually very well behaved. My new desk mate is planning to tutor me in the future. Go ahead, see you after school. He thought that this matter was over. After all, there had been no news from the other side for a few minutes. Just when Fu Jiu was planning to dig out more members of the team, her phone vibrated again. So your grades are so bad that you need to tutor to reach the standard. Fu Jiu. Chapter 104. The main thing was that after saying this, Boss Qin didn't have any intention of restraining himself. Then he added, what rank did you get last time? Fu Jiu's fingers paused. She really didn't want to answer this question, because it was a huge blow to her. She almost suspected that the Almighty said that on purpose. With the Almighty's black-bellied personality, it was very possible. She really couldn't reply to such a man. Fu Jiu decisively put her phone in the desk. Not long after, he was shocked again. There are more than 50 people in your class. You should be in the top 40, right? Fu Jiu still didn't say anything. She was sure that the Almighty did it on purpose. Top 45. Fu Jiu's handsome face fell even more. When he felt that it was about time, the man slowly replied, don't tell me you're in the last 3. Instead of being tortured by the Almighty again and again, she might as well admit it herself. Fu Jiu sent 2 words over gloomily, fall 1. Oh. Qin Mo's beautiful tone was raised with an obvious smile. So that's how it is. Fu Jiu. What else could it be? Almighty, you asked so many questions because you already knew that I was a slacker. 11:05 p.m. In a 5-star hotel, the table was full of dishes. It was a bit early for ordinary people to eat, but not for business. Chatting with the young man while the dishes were being served really increased one's appetite. Qin Mo looked at the ellipses on the screen, and the young man's depressed face appeared in his mind again. He couldn't help but smile. Secretary Liang stood beside him and saw his CEO's sudden smile. He couldn't help but shiver. When did CEO Qin ever smile during a business meeting? And CEO Qin didn't have the habit of holding his phone. He secretly nodded and saw Fu Jiu's name on the screen. At this moment, Secretary Liang's heart was in a mess. A mess that couldn't be described. The person who came for business was also from an aristocratic family, but he was more than 10 years older than Qin Mo. Seeing him smile, he raised his eyebrows. When they were almost done with the project, Qin Mo asked indifferently, "I heard that CEO Xiao has a brother who is in high school." CEO Xiao was stunned. It seemed that he didn't expect the powerful young Master Qin to talk about such private matters. He smiled and said, "Yes, I do have a brother." "How is his study?" Qin Mo picked up the glass of red wine and took a sip. His handsome face didn't change at all, as if he was just having a casual chat. CEO Xiao smiled bitterly. "To be honest, it's not good. I have to attend a parent-teacher conference on his behalf tomorrow." Parent-teacher meeting. Qin Mo repeated these 3 words, a pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes deepened, no one knew what he was thinking. President Xiao continued, "But I can't blame him. Even I can't understand the current high school textbooks. Those questions are too difficult. I'm planning to find a private tutor to tutor him." Qin Mo didn't reply. President Xiao thought that he was unhappy, but he knew when to stop. "Look at me, I talk a lot when I talk about my brother. It's nothing. I have a younger brother too. I understand that feeling." Qin Mo's expression was still calm. He was dressed in a well-ironed suit, looking noble and luxurious. What he said almost made Secretary Liang spit out the red wine in his mouth. "CEO Qin, CEO Zhao's son is his biological brother, but yours isn't. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.